The forgotten frequency. The attic had always been a mystery. It wasn't a secret exactly, just forgotten, sealed behind a creaking door and layers of dust that had settled like snow through the years. Mia never had a reason to go up there. That changed the day her grandmother passed away. Her family had come together to clear out the old house, a small two-story place that had always smelled of lavender and wood polish. Mia's grandmother had lived there for nearly 50 years, and now it was quiet, too quiet. With boxes stacked in the hall and relatives busy in the kitchen, Mia wandered upstairs drawn by a strange sense of unfinished business. The attic door groaned as she pulled it open. Motes of dust danced in the shaft of light from the hallway. The narrow staircase curved slightly, and as Mia stepped onto the first creaking board, she felt a chill brush her arm, not cold, just aware. The attic was cramped and cluttered. Old books faded, Christmas decorations, rusted tools. She stepped over a broken fan and a bundle of yellowed newspapers heading toward a covered object in the far corner. Something about it pulled at her attention, like the faintest thread of curiosity being tugged from inside her chest. Pulling back the dusty cloth revealed an old tabletop radio, the kind with tuning dials and a thick antenna. Its body was made of deep brown bakelite chipped along the corners, but the glass display was still intact, marked with frequencies in white and green. The word Marconi was barely legible beneath the dust. Mia touched the surface. Static crackled faintly, though the radio wasn't plugged in. She froze. That wasn't possible. Kneeling down, she checked again. No cord, no batteries, no reason for the sound. Then it happened. A flicker of static turned into something else, a soft hum, like someone humming a lullaby underwater. Mia leaned closer, eyebrows knitting together. The hum sharpened, words formed, muffled, fragmented. Mia. She bolted upright. Her heart thudded against her ribs. No one else was upstairs. Mia. The voice was clearer now, familiar, male. She hadn't heard it in a decade, but she recognized it instantly. Eli. 10 years ago, Eli had vanished on a cold November night. He was her best friend, just 17, the boy who'd once dared her to sneak out and lie under the stars. The boy whose laughter still echoed in her dreams. The boy who never came home. They searched for weeks, dogs, flyers, news vans. But Eli was gone, declared dead in absence, buried in memory. And now, Mia, are you there? The radio hissed and popped, the voice fading in and out like wind through tall grass. Mia stumbled backward, nearly tripping over a box. Her hand covered her mouth, heart racing. No, she whispered. That's not real. That can't be real. But something deep inside her knew it was. Not a trick, not a malfunction. It was him. She crouched down again, hesitating only a second before placing both hands on the radio. Eli, she said, is that you? Silence, then a click. And the voice returned shaky and distant. You found it. I didn't think you would. I've been trying to reach you. Mia's eyes filled with tears. Eli, where are you? It's not easy to explain. I'm not in a place you'd understand. She blinked, her pulse thudding in her ears. Are you dead? A long pause. Not exactly, not yet. I think I'm stuck. The words were chilling in their vagueness, but the tone, the voice, it was unmistakably his. That sarcastic warmth, the faint hitch when he was nervous. It was Eli. She was speaking to a ghost, a lost signal, a forgotten voice in the static. How is this possible, she asked, voice trembling. The radio, it was your grandmother's. She knew, she used it too. It only works for people. People who are connected. Connected to what? To those we've lost. The in-between. This radio, it's like a bridge. Mia wiped her cheek. Are you okay wherever you are? Ha, sir. Rissa Warney, not really. The signal dipped. Static buzzed louder like angry bees, then softened. There's not much time. They don't like me talking to you. Who she asked, her throat tightening. No answer. Eli, who's stopping you? A sharp squeal shrieked from the radio like metal on metal, or a scream from something inhuman. Mia jerked her hands away. The dial spun by itself, clicking through frequencies like a roulette wheel gone mad. Then silence. The radio powered down its glass face dark. Mia stared at it, breath coming in short bursts. The attic felt colder, heavier, as if the very air was warning her, leave now. She picked up the radio, careful not to touch the dials. It was lighter than she expected, almost too light. Cradling it in her arms, she descended the attic stairs and shut the door behind her. Downstairs, her family bustled about with boxes, laughter, and murmurs of nostalgia. They had no idea what had just happened. Mia placed the radio on her grandmother's old side table and stared at it. It sat there innocently silent, as if it hadn't just shattered her understanding of reality. What did Eli mean they don't like him talking to her? Was he in danger? Was he reaching out for help? Had her grandmother known something more? She needed answers, and she knew exactly where to start. That night, unable to sleep, Mia sat on her bedroom floor with the radio in front of her. She plugged it in this time, though she wasn't sure that made any difference. The plug was just for her comfort, a trick of normalcy. The clock read 2:57 a.m. She didn't know why she waited. Something told her it had to be after midnight, in the quiet hours when the world slept and the veil thinned. 300 a.m., nothing. 3:12, nothing. 3:33, the dial glowed. Mia jumped. A low hum stirred like distant thunder behind the clouds. Mirza Fompin, Mia, Eli, she whispered, leaning close. I'm sorry, I got pulled away. Are you okay? What's happening to you? They know I found you, that I'm trying to tell you. The line crackled as if some force was trying to block the message. You're in danger too now. Why, she asked. What do they want? The bridge. It doesn't just go one way. Then the signal cut out again. This time the radio didn't power off. It whispered. Not in words, but in fragments of sound, hissing, weeping wind through trees, something sharp scraping stone. Then a new voice, not Eli's, not human. It said one word, stop. Mia flinched. Her lamp flickered. The air in the room pressed against her skin like invisible fingers. Then the radio turned off. Mia sat in silence, the glow of the radio's dial etched in her mind. She had crossed a line. She had tuned into something she wasn't meant to hear, but she wasn't going to stop. Eli was out there, somewhere between life and death, calling through the static. And if there was a way to bring him back, or at least understand what happened, she was going to find it, even if it meant facing whatever was on the other side of the signal. A name in the noise. The next morning, Mia barely touched her toast. The clink of dishes, the muffled chatter of her parents, the birdsong outside, none of it registered. Her thoughts were lost in static, caught in the space between reality and something else. Something unreachable. Or maybe almost reachable. Eli had spoken to her. She hadn't imagined it. She couldn't have. But someone or something else had spoken too. Stop. The word echoed in her mind, cold and commanding, like a warning chiseled into stone. She couldn't ignore it, but she wouldn't obey it either. When the radio was silent, the silence itself felt haunted. That afternoon, she returned to her room, locking the door behind her. The radio sat on her desk like an artifact, its dial still and unassuming. She stared at it for a long while before switching it on. Nothing. No humming, no static, no Eli. She reached out fingers, trembling slightly, and adjusted the dial slowly through the frequencies. Most produced nothing but low static or silence. Then at 103.7, a whisper brushed the air. Wamia. Her breath caught. Eli, she whispered. So when it's me. Relief surged through her like warmth in winter. She leaned in, hands braced on the desk. I heard another voice last night, she said softly. It told me to stop. There was a pause. I know, Eli said. They're listening now. I can't stay long. Who are they? I don't know what they are. Shadows, echoes, whatever's left behind when someone gets stuck between the frequencies. Mia's skin prickled. How did you get stuck? I shouldn't have been out that night. Remember the clearing by the tracks? I went there after the last time we hung out. I heard something like music, static but rhythmic. I thought it was just my headphones acting up. A pause then. Then I wasn't there anymore. It was like falling without moving, a darkness that hummed. I couldn't see anything for what felt like days, but I could hear the static, whispers, screaming sometimes. Mia swallowed hard. But why you? I don't know. Maybe the radio signal caught me, or maybe the place wanted me. The room felt smaller somehow, as if the air itself leaned closer to listen. I've tried to call out, Eli continued, but it only works when someone listens, when someone believes. That's why your grandma used the radio. She talked to someone too. I think, I think she left it for you. Mia stared at the radio stunned. She knew. She told me once. Eli's voice cracked with emotion. Before I disappeared, she said the veil was thin for some people, that the old radios pick up more than just music if you know how to listen. She never told me, Mia whispered. She couldn't. Some things, they hide better in silence. Suddenly, the frequency hissed sharp and metallic. Eli's voice wavered. They're coming. Wait, don't go, Eli. Mia, listen to me. If they know your name, they can find you. They can cross. Don't let them know your name. The static spiked, then collapsed into silence. A heavy, suffocating quiet. She waited, heart hammering, but nothing more came. That night she couldn't sleep. Not because she was afraid, though she was, but because something was forming like pieces of a jigsaw puzzle, rearranging themselves in her mind. What if names held power? In all the old stories, folklore, ghost tales, ancient legends, the knowing of someone's true name was always dangerous. She remembered when she was 8, Eli once told her, if a monster knows your name, it owns you. Back then it was a game. Now it felt like prophecy. The next day she went to the local library. Not the sleek, modern one downtown, the old one near the edge of the historic district. Her grandmother used to bring her here on weekends when she was younger. Mia wandered through dusty aisles until she found a section on local folklore and paranormal research. Some books were thick with yellowed pages, others typed by hand. She read about EVP, electronic voice phenomena, and haunted frequencies. Most of it felt vague, speculative. But one line stood out in a small blue-bound volume titled Bridges Beyond Sound. Names carry resonance. To speak a name into a dead frequency is to open a door. A door. What had she done? Mia's breath caught. She had spoken to Eli, repeated his name, repeated her own name, out loud, into the static. Had she opened something? That night she unplugged the radio again. No electricity, no excuse. She sat cross-legged on her bed, staring at the radio in the dim light of her desk lamp. The clock ticked closer to 3:33 a.m., and then static. No power, no plug, but the dial flickered with that same greenish glow. Mia didn't touch it. She waited. Then came a whisper, not Eli's, but something else. Not male, not female, not even human. It spoke softly, rhythmically. Fear, bin. Her name over and over. Mia's blood turned to ice. She clamped her hand over her mouth, resisting the urge to respond. Stop, she whispered under her breath, shaking her head. You don't know me. Mia, come closer. The voice slid between frequencies like oil slipping through water. It was wrong, too many tones, too many pitches. A chorus of not-quite voices mimicking a sound they didn't understand. Go away, she hissed. The radio shrieked. Not a scream, more like a feedback loop bursting through broken speakers. Then silence. Then, it's too late. We know your name now. The dial turned itself again, once, twice, a third time. And then Eli's voice burst through like a gasp for air. Kana, Mia, don't speak to them. I didn't, she started, but the radio crackled again. They tricked you. They don't need your permission anymore. What does that mean? It means they can follow the signal, through the static, through the walls, a beat. You have to break the connection. The dial glowed hotter, the hum deep and vibrating the desk. You'll have to destroy the radio. No, she whispered. If I do that, I'll never talk to you again. I'd rather be trapped, Eli said, voice full of pain than let them come through. The glow turned red. Outside her window, something moved. Not a bird, not a shadow. Something watching, something waiting. Mia, came that unholy voice again, soft and seductive. Let us in. She reached for the plug, but it wasn't connected. Of course. There was no cord, no power, no control. Just her and the static. I can't, she said aloud. I won't lose you again, Eli. Then you'll lose more than me, he said sadly. And the radio went dark. Morning light poured through her window, warm and golden. It felt unreal, like a scene in a painting, a place untouched by whatever crept into her world the night before. But it was real. The radio was still there, cold, silent, harmless looking. Mia touched the dial. Nothing. She unplugged the lamp and placed it beside the radio. If anything came through again, she'd be ready. But deep down, she knew this wasn't about technology anymore. It was about sound. And sound lives everywhere. In the air, in the walls, in her own breath. They knew her name now, and they were coming. He should be dead. The knock came just after noon. Mia, still in her sweatshirt from last night, froze halfway down the stairs. Her hands gripped the banister. There was no one expected. No deliveries, no visitors. 3 knocks, not loud but precise. She peered through the peephole. Nothing. Just the empty porch and the quiet street. But when she turned to walk away, another knock sounded, this time from behind her. From inside the house. She spun. Silence. Her stomach twisted into a tight knot. The knock hadn't come from the front door at all. It had come from the living room wall, right where the old radio now sat on a low-side table. She crept toward it, heart racing. The dial glowed a faint green. She hadn't touched it since last night, hadn't powered it, hadn't even dared whisper near it. But now it was active again, and humming. Slowly, Mia crouched in front of it, just as she had in the attic days earlier. Eli, she asked softly. Nothing. The hum shifted, modulating into something closer to a breathing sound. Then a whisper emerged, clearer than any she had heard before. He's not dead. What Mia whispered startled. He never was. The voice was not Eli's. Not the chorus of monsters. Not the shadow in the static. This voice was female, firm, tired, and deeply sorrowful. Who are you? Mia asked. I was like you, once, a listener, a seeker. Mia's throat tightened. Do you know Eli? I knew him, the voice said, or at least, what was left of him. Mia leaned closer. Please, tell me what happened to him. A long pause. Then he was caught, not taken, kept. They lured him through a weak point somewhere near the tracks. There was a breach and his signal was split. Half of him faded, but half remained anchored. Anchored, Mia asked. To what? To you, the voice replied. Your bond with him, your memory. It kept the signal alive even after he should have disappeared. Mia felt her breath catch. So he isn't dead. No, Kim, but he isn't alive either. The words hung heavy in the air. He's a frequency now, the voice continued. An echo of the boy you loved, trapped in a current that loops over and over. He remembers you because you were the last person who mattered to him. Mia blinked fast, swallowing back a lump in her throat. Is there a way to bring him back? She whispered. The voice did not answer. Please, she said again, more desperate this time. There has to be something I can do. He'll pause. There's a way, the voice finally said, low in warning, but it comes at a cost. What cost? You must replace the anchor. Mia went cold. You mean me? Yes. If I become the anchor, what happens to me? You won't die. Not in the way you think. You'll fade slowly. Memories first, then sound, then sight. Eventually, you'll be nothing but static, just like him. Mia looked at the radio, the hum now steady and louder than before. She saw her own reflection in the glossy glass dial, a girl trembling, eyes wide, pulled between grief and the impossible. Then what's the point, she asked almost to herself. To bring him home, the voice said, just once, even if briefly. The line went silent, the voice was gone. That night, the dreams began. Mia wandered endless fields of antennas, rusted, broken, humming, softly as if whispering to one another in a secret language. Fog clung to the air, and from the distance she could hear her name. Not screamed, not called, pulled, as if the sound itself wanted her. In the center of the field stood Eli, or what remained of him. His form flickered like an image on an old TV screen, sometimes clear, sometimes just static. His eyes met hers across the distance. He reached out. Mia woke with a gasp, the echo of his name still ringing in her ears. She didn't go to school, didn't tell her parents. She couldn't. They wouldn't believe her. No one would. This wasn't something you could explain. She sat in front of the radio for hours just listening. The static grew worse. Then at 3:33 again a voice returned. Ellie, I saw you, he whispered. In the field, she asked. I don't know what's real anymore, he said, voice cracking. I remember you, your laugh, your old red bike, but everything else is slipping. Mia reached out, brushing the dial. They told me there's a way to bring you back. He paused. No, he said, don't listen to them. They said I could anchor you. You'd fade, he said. They're lying. They don't want to help me. They want to use you to strengthen the signal. If they have two anchors they can breach fully, they'll become real, solid. Mia's stomach sank. So it's a trap. Yes, he said. That's why I told you not to speak your name. Not to engage, but it's too late now. A sharp burst of static interrupted the line. Then through the noise, a faint voice emerged, not Eli, not the woman, a child. Mia. It was soft, innocent. She knew instinctively it wasn't real. A mimic, a manipulation. But still the sound chilled her to the bone. Mia, it repeated more urgently. Help me. Then came a guttural growl, followed by a deep, resonant voice that vibrated through the floorboards. She belongs to us now. No, Mia screamed, pulling the radio plug from the wall. But the static didn't stop. The glow remained. She threw the radio across the room. It shattered. Silence fell. Then the faint laughter. Mia backed away. The next morning her phone rang. Blocked number. She hesitated, then answered. Nothing but static. Then Eli's voice clearer than ever. Mia, they're in the wires now. Not just the radio. They've moved into the electric lines, the signals. You can't use phones, not even lights. They're listening. Where are you? She asked. I'm somewhere close. I think I'm near the clearing. I can feel it. The static's weaker there. You have to come before they stop you. She grabbed her coat phone and flashlight. No plan, just instinct. It was nearly dusk when she reached the old tracks outside town. The clearing was overgrown, now trees like claws silhouetted against the sky. Mia stepped through the tall grass, heart pounding. Then she heard it, a hum, low-wee metallic. She followed the sound. And there at the center of the clearing stood a figure. Ellie, whole, human. He turned. Mia, he said. She ran to him, almost collapsing into his arms. He felt real, warm, alive. Is it really you? She whispered. He nodded. The breach weakened. I got out. For now. But I don't have long. Then let's leave. Come with me. I can't, he said, stepping back. Not yet. You have to seal it. The signal breach. How? There's a transmitter, he said. Old, buried beneath the tower nearby. My signal was hijacked through it. If you destroy it, you can close the bridge. But how do I find it? He placed something in her hand. A small tuning dial broken from the old radio. It'll guide you. It's attuned to the interference. Mia nodded. But then she heard something behind them. Whispers. They were coming. Go, Eli shouted. I'll hold them off. I'm not leaving you again. You're the only one who can stop this. She hesitated, then ran. As she fled through the trees, the static followed her, growing louder with every step. Whispers danced around her ears, crawling under her skin. The tuning dial in her palm buzzed, growing hot. She reached the tower. The ground beneath was soft. Digging with her hands, she unearthed a rusted metal box, pulsing faintly with light. The transmitter. Without thinking, she raised the flashlight and slammed it down. Once for him, twice. The box sparked. Then a final burst of white-hot noise exploded from the device. And silence. Real silence. For the first time in days. Back in the clearing, Eli was gone. No sign of struggle. No static. Just the wind. Mia sat in the grass, holding the shattered tuning dial in her hands. She didn't know if he had been saved, if the breach had taken him, or if just maybe she had given him peace. But she did know one thing. He should be dead. And somehow, he wasn't. The message repeats. Mia didn't sleep that night. She sat by her window, the broken tuning dial clutched in her hands. Outside, the wind stirred the trees. Inside, the house was silent, eerily so. No ticking clocks, no humming fridge. She had unplugged everything. Even her phone was off. After what happened, she couldn't trust any of it. But the silence didn't comfort her. It only amplified the one thing she couldn't ignore. The static in her mind. Not noise exactly, just the sense that something was waiting to return. Watching, holding its breath through invisible wires. And then, as if on cue, a voice came through the stillness. Not from the radio. Not from any device. From the air itself. She froze. The whisper vibrated against her skin like low bass. She didn't move, didn't breathe. Then came the words again. Don't forget me. It was Eli, or what remained of him. She turned the tuning dial over in her hands. The metal felt colder, now heavier, as if it had absorbed something when she destroyed the transmitter. A question formed in her head, a terrible, impossible question. Had she sealed the breach, or trapped him inside it? The next morning, Mia rode her bike to the edge of town toward the abandoned radio tower. She had to see it again to make sure it was really over. But when she arrived, something was wrong. The ground where she had unearthed the transmitter was untouched. No signs of the hole she dug, no debris, no shattered metal box. Just dirt, smooth, flat, undisturbed. It was as if the breach had never been there at all, or someone had covered it up. Her pulse quickened. She pulled out the tuning dial, holding it up. It didn't buzz, didn't glow, didn't do anything. The signal was gone. Back home, Mia set the broken dial on her desk. She turned on her laptop to search for more information, anything about haunted frequencies, psychic transmission bridges between worlds. But her screen flickered, then froze, then turned blue. An error message appeared. Signal loop detected. She frowned. Before she could reboot it, a soft beep came from her bedside drawer. Her phone. Still off. Still unplugged. She opened the drawer slowly. The screen was lit up. No lock screen. Just a black background with white text pulsing across it. Don't believe the silence. Mia's breath caught. A second line appeared. He's still sending the message. Then the phone went dark. She sat back in her chair, hands trembling. It wasn't over. Eli was still out there somewhere in the signal. That night, Mia couldn't help herself. She pulled the shattered radio from her closet. Carefully, with shaking fingers, she reassembled what pieces she could. The casing was cracked, the antenna broken in half, but the internal circuit board was mostly intact. She taped the dial back in place, plugged it in. The radio didn't turn on, but static, soft, distant filled the air. Not from the speaker, from the walls. It slithered through the drywall like an infection, a low, endless hiss she could feel in her teeth. She pressed her ear against the radio, and she heard it. Eli's voice. Faint, fractured, looping. I don't believe the silence. Don't believe the silence. Again and again, the message repeated endlessly, broken by static but unmistakably him. Mia whispered into the speaker grill. Eli, I'm here. I hear you. No response. Just the loop. I don't believe the silence. She leaned closer, pressing her forehead to the radio. Can you hear me? Suddenly, the message stopped. A new phrase emerged. Just once. Clear, sharp. They're using my voice. Mia's blood ran cold. For the next several days, the radio remained silent. No no whispers. But the voice kept appearing in other ways. In the car radio, when her mom drove her to school, just a flicker of static and a whisper of her name between stations. In the background of a YouTube video, where she swore she heard Eli's breath behind a podcast intro. On a voicemail from an unknown number, only static for 33 seconds. Then, Mia, don't let them wear me. Then click. It was like chasing a ghost across the digital landscape. No pattern, no logic. But always repeating, always looping, the same phrase. Surrentuan. Don't believe the silence. She wrote it down, over and over, on notebook paper, sticky notes, her arm. Anything to remind herself that Eli was still reaching out, still trying to warn her. On the fifth night, she returned to the attic. She had avoided it since the beginning, but now something drew her back, like the beginning had circled around to meet the present. The radio had originally come from here. Maybe the attic itself was part of the connection. She climbed the stairs quietly, flashlight in hand. The air was thicker, heavier, like the dust wasn't just in the air, but in time itself. She scanned the attic. Nothing had moved, but everything felt different. Then she saw it, a mirror leaning against the far wall. It hadn't been there before, or maybe it had and she'd never noticed. She approached it slowly. Her reflection stared back, pale and uncertain. Then movement. Not in the mirror, behind it. She spun around. Nothing. She turned back to the mirror, but now her reflection was gone, replaced by static. Grayscale noise like a broken television screen. And from within that flickering haze, a shape emerged. A face. Eli. But his eyes were empty. His mouth moved, but no sound came. Then through the wall of noise, she heard his voice again, this time. Not from the mirror, but from inside her own mind. They're copying me. Don't answer unless it's really me. You'll know. Then silence. Her reflection returned. But she didn't look the same. Her expression was off, just slightly, as if someone else was trying to be her and not quite getting it right. She backed away, left the attic without looking back. The next day, her mother commented on the sleeplessness in her eyes. Mia said she was fine, that she just had a lot on her mind. That was true, just not in a way she could explain. At school, she barely listened. The world outside her was dull now, faded like a memory she no longer belonged to. All she cared about was the message that wouldn't stop repeating. On her way home, the city's emergency sirens crackled on for a full minute, then stopped. Everyone thought it was a glitch. But Mia heard it, faint, buried in the audio. Mia, help me. No one else heard it. Of course they didn't. They weren't tuned like she was. That night she made a decision. If Eli was trapped in a loop repeating the same message over and over, Then maybe she could interrupt it, change the pattern, break the signal from the inside. She didn't have the equipment, but she had the frequency. She opened her grandmother's trunk and pulled out the old cassette player, the one she used to record her own voice as a kid. She dug out a blank tape, pressed record, and spoke. Eli, I'm here. I hear you. I know they're copying you, but I remember who you really are. I remember the fireflies at the lake. I remember your terrible guitar playing. I remember the way you always left your shoes untied. She paused. I'm going to find you, but you have to give me something new, something real, a message only you would send. Then she stopped the tape, rewound it, played it back. It sounded the same. But when it reached the end of her voice, something happened. A new voice layered itself on top. Not hers, not Eli's, but his handwriting in sound form. Red shoelaces, you remember? Her breath caught. Yes, yes, he had worn red laces, always, even when they didn't match. It was him. That was the key. He was fighting them, even now, even in the loop. All she had to do was follow the message. Wherever it repeated, however it twisted, she would find its core. And through it, she would find Eli. Static at 3:33 a.m. Mia hadn't planned to wake up, but her eyes snapped open at exactly 3:33 a.m. No alarm, no dream, no noise. Just her body knowing. Her phone still powered off, lit up by itself. The lock screen blinked once, then blacked out. Then came the sound. Not loud, but sharp, static. She sat up, her blanket falling to the floor. The sound wasn't coming from the radio this time. It was everywhere. From the outlets, from inside the walls, from the quiet hum of the fridge downstairs. The static bled through reality like ink through water, coating every corner of the house with its buzz. She stood stepping lightly across the cold wooden floor, drawn by the sound. The hall was dark. The static got louder near her grandmother's room, the one no one had entered since the funeral. Mia gripped the handle, twisted, pushed the door open. The air inside was different, dense, heavy, like trying to breathe underwater. Moonlight fell in through the lace-curtained window, illuminating dust motes dancing like pale fireflies. And in the middle of the floor sat the radio. Not the one she broke. A different one. A new one. Vintage, same shape, but newer, untouched. The dial glowed green. It was already on. Mia stepped forward, heart pounding in her throat. She knelt beside it, placing a hand over the top. The moment her fingers touched the casing, the sound shifted. From static to footsteps, crunching on leaves. Then a voice, faint, familiar. Oh, you found it. Eli, she whispered. One, this isn't the same bridge, his voice said. It's deeper, older. What is this, she asked. He hesitated. Then a trap. The word fell like a stone into her stomach. I thought I could reach you again, he continued, but they're using this now. The signal doesn't connect to me. It connects to them. Mia recoiled slightly from the radio. But you're here, she whispered. I heard you. That's because I'm near. But I didn't speak through this one. A crackle broke through the frequency. Then a new voice. Flat. Wrong. Like someone trying to mimic Eli's tone but twisting it at the edges. Mia. It's me. Come closer. She clenched her jaw. That's not him. Don't you miss me, it purred. Don't you want to see me again? Then it laughed. A gurgling, insect-like laughter. The sound made her nauseous. Mia yanked the cord from the wall. The static stopped instantly. But the radio stayed on. The dial flickered red. It's 3:33, Mia. That's our favorite time. Her heart sank. That wasn't something Eli had ever said. But she had. In a diary, when she was 15, they were in her memories. Mia stood backing away, bumping into her grandmother's vanity. A photo frame toppled over. She picked it up. It was a picture of her and Eli from a summer picnic before he vanished. Her grandmother had taken it. She turned the frame around. Taped to the back was a tiny folded note. She opened it. The handwriting was her grandmother's. If it finds your name, it finds your face. Burn the echoes, break the loop. Mia's breath caught in her throat. Burn the echoes. She didn't know what that meant yet, but she knew the house wasn't safe anymore. By morning, she had packed a bag. Just essentials, clothes, flashlight, batteries, a paper map, the old cassette player, the tuning dial, and a lighter. She left the broken radio behind, but not the photo. She tucked it into her jacket pocket. Then she went back to the one place she hadn't dared return since the incident with the transmitter. The clearing by the train tracks. It looked the same, but felt entirely different. The trees leaned closer now as though they were listening. The grass grew in crooked patches twisted toward the center. And in the middle of it all, a speaker. A single cracked speaker sitting atop a stone slab like an altar. No wires, no power source. Yet it emitted static. Mia stepped closer, and it spoke, not in words, in sounds, footsteps, whispers, crying, whined through dead branches, the sound of her own voice from weeks ago. I'm going to find you. And then Eli's voice, clear, strong, wrong. I never left. I live here now. She stared at the speaker. Realization struck her like lightning. This was the loop. All the messages, all the repetitions, they were being broadcast from here, from this new signal point, and this was the echo she had to burn. Mia pulled the photo from her pocket. Her grandmother's note trembled in her fingers. Burn the echoes. She set the picture frame at the base of the speaker. The photo fluttered in the breeze. Then she opened the lighter, flicked the flame to life, hesitated. Eli, she whispered, if you're in there, I'm sorry. She dropped the flame onto the photo. It caught instantly. The fire leapt up, swallowing the frame. The static screamed. Not audio, not technology, but pain. The speaker sparked, popped, then exploded. Mia fell backwards, shielding her face as debris scattered through the clearing. Smoke rose from the blackened stump where the speaker had been. Then, one, silence. The kind she hadn't heard in weeks. True, deep, untouched silence. For a moment, nothing happened. Then she heard it, from deep in the woods. A voice, familiar, weak. Mahima, Mia. She turned toward it and saw Eli, the real Eli. Not flickering, not distorted, just him. Barefoot, pale, clothes torn but eyes clear, human. Mia, he whispered again. She ran to him, grabbed him. He was solid. He was warm. He was back. They didn't speak for a long time. He just held her, trembling. I didn't think I'd ever see you again, he said finally. I didn't think I could do it, she replied. He looked at the sky. It's not over, he said quietly, but you broke the loop. You stopped the message. She looked at him, confused. Then what's still out there? He shook his head. There are other frequencies, other bridges. This was just one. Then how are you here, she asked. He smiled, sad-tired. You remembered me, not the echo, not the fake me. She swallowed the lump in her throat. I burned the echo, she whispered. Yeah, he said softly. And that gave me enough to follow your voice back. As the sun rose, they walked home together. The static was gone, but Mia knew this wasn't the end of the story, just the end of one signal. Tuning into the past. Eli didn't speak much in the first days after his return. His eyes often drifted to empty corners of the room, as if watching something only he could see. Mia gave him space. She knew time flowed differently where he had been, and memories didn't resurface all at once. But when he did speak, it was always in pieces. Sound doesn't echo right in that place. Or they don't sleep, they wait. And once, there were others, not just me. That last part stuck in Mia's head like a splinter. Others. Were there more people trapped inside the signal? She had believed Eli was the only one. the anomaly, the accident. But maybe he was just the one who managed to call for help. It was the old cassette player that led her to the truth. Late one evening, Mia sat in her room running the tape she had recorded days ago, the one where she'd asked Eli to send her a message. She knew what it contained, her voice a pause, then Eli's response. Red shoelaces, you remember? She'd played it so many times it had become burned into her brain. But this time, after rewinding the tape and pressing play, something new happened. Right before her voice started, there was a faint click. Then a second voice layered underneath her own. Help me, please. It was small, feminine, terrified. Mia froze. She rewound, slowed it down, amplified it. The words were there, not imagined, recorded. Someone else had spoken through the tape before her voice even started. She opened the player, took out the cassette, and examined the tape. No markings, but the sound was real. She tried the other tapes in the collection. Most were blank or filled with fragments of childhood songs and nonsense. But tape 4, the one her grandmother had labeled "Do Not Erase," was different. She slid it in, pressed play. At first it was just static. Then music old like a radio broadcast from the 1950s. Then a woman's voice. This is Margaret Ellis. If someone hears this, please find my husband. He vanished into the frequency. August 17th, 1962. I think they copied his voice. I burned the photograph, but they still found me. They always do. Then screaming. Then silence. Mia's skin turned cold. She had no idea who Margaret Ellis was, but someone decades ago had faced the same terror she had and left a warning behind. She took the cassette to Eli. He stared at the floor while it played. When it finished, he nodded slowly. I remember her, he said quietly. You saw her in the signal? No, not exactly, but her voice echoed. A lot of the old ones echo like that. They're stuck in a loop deeper than mine. What do you mean? There are levels, he explained. Layers of static, like floors in a building. The lower you go, the harder it is to hold on to who you are. I was close to the surface. That's probably why I could reach you. Mia listened, heart thudding. She's still trapped, she asked. I don't know. Maybe. Or maybe only her voice is left. Then I have to find out. Eli looked at her sharply. No, I have to, she said. She left a message just like you. She tried to reach someone. And it almost killed you to answer me, he said. What if she's deeper than we can reach? What if they're using her voice just like they used mine? Mia hesitated, then said softly, then I'll know. I can feel it when it's not real now. You taught me that. Eli shook his head. You don't understand. The deeper you go, the more personal it becomes. The static starts pulling from your memories. It'll make you question everything, even me. Mia looked him in the eyes. Then come with me. The attic became their headquarters again. The new radio, the one that had appeared in her grandmother's room, now sat in the center of the floor. Its glow was faint, waiting. Mia gathered old tapes, headphones, the tuning dial, and anything else she could use to amplify or redirect the signal. Together they began tuning. Eli knew the frequencies by feel. He said each one had a taste, a weight like shifting air pressure before a storm. He turned the dial slowly, carefully, pausing at intervals that made Mia's bones ache. They passed through fragments of reality. A child crying. A woman singing lullabies in another language. A news broadcast that looped only the phrase, "No survivors." Then at 142.3 FM, they heard it. Margaret Ellis, repeating transmission, repeating the same voice, the same message, but distorted, pulled too thin across time. Mia closed her eyes and focused. Margaret, she whispered, can you hear me? Static roared. Eli grunted, clutching his head. They heard that. Then silence. Then a new voice, not Margaret's, male. Cold, you keep digging. And we keep watching. Mia grabbed the tuning dial and turned it sharply left. The signal broke. The hum stopped. For a moment, everything was still. Later that night, Mia replayed the recording from the 142.3 signal. There was something under the static, something rhythmic. She isolated it on her laptop. 4 tones. Beep, 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 pause. Then again, it repeated every 13 seconds. She ran it through a decoder. It matched Morse code. HELP. Someone, something was sending out a distress call. Still. Now, Eli stood over her shoulder. It's not just her, he said. Mia nodded. There's a network, isn't there? Maybe even a system, he said. Like an underground highway, only no one knows how many exits there are. Mia picked up the tuning dial. We have to map it. Eli didn't answer, but his eyes said everything. Over the next week, they built a board, a signal map. Each known frequency, its sounds, its time of day, its emotional impact was charted with color-coded pins and scribbled notes. 142.3, Margaret Ellis, Morse code, help, voice repeat pattern 4 HR. 103.7, Eli's old frequency, still silent since the speaker burn. 118.6, unknown child laughter. No return message possible. 94.5, name mimic channel, don't respond. They discovered 9 active frequencies, 3 repeated known voices, 2 mimicked hers. 1 tried to bribe her. 1 simply whispered the word door over and over. But the final one, 66.6 FM, they hadn't dared stay on it long. It didn't whisper. It listened. And sometimes it answered. On the 7th day, Margaret's voice came through again. Clearer this time. I'm in the hallway. It's dark. My hands aren't mine. I remember my wedding dress. Please, if anyone hears this, break the loop. Burn the face, not the name. The face. Then silence. Mia turned to Eli. What does that mean? He looked pale. I don't know. But he was lying. She could see it in his eyes. That night, Mia went to the attic alone. She stared at the photo she had saved, the one of her and Eli. Then she looked around at the scattered tapes, cables, notes. She understood something now. It wasn't about saving one person. It never was. This was about cutting off the voices before they spread. Each person lost to the static became another potential mimic, another signal to hijack, another face to wear. Burn the face, not the name. Mia lit the edge of the photo, watched as her younger self's smile curled into ash. Then she did the same to a tape labeled Birthday 17, Eli Plamia. The fire hissed. She felt a weight lift. The static in the room retreated. Downstairs, her phone lit up again despite being off. A single notification. You're learning, but so are we. And then, Nan and Reed Houston, see you at 3:33. Whispers from the basement. The first whisper came just after midnight. Mia had been cataloging the new frequency patterns when it reached her ears, faint like a breeze moving across dry leaves. It didn't come from the attic or the hallway. It came from beneath her, from the basement. She froze the tuning dial in one hand, a pencil in the other suspended mid-sentence in her logbook. The house was still, everyone else asleep. But the whisper kept repeating. Not words at first, just breath. Ragged, deliberate, almost mechanical. Then, Mia, come down. Her grip on the pencil tightened. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She hadn't set foot in the basement since she was a child. Her grandmother had once warned her almost superstitiously, basements hold too much memory. Don't go down alone. At the time, she'd laughed it off. But now she remembered the look in her grandmother's eyes, haunted and hard. Now Mia understood. Basements weren't just places. They were anchors where the past clung to the present, where the house stored what it didn't want seen. And something was calling to her from that very place. She stood at the top of the basement stairs, flashlight in hand. The house around her was completely dark. The static had gone silent for the first time in days, almost too silent. Eli had gone out earlier to collect new tape reels from a thrift store, promising to be back before midnight. But he was late. Mia was alone. But she couldn't wait. The voice from the basement was familiar. It wasn't Eli, but it wore a voice she once knew. Her father's. He had died when she was 10. She descended the stairs slowly, flashlight cutting through the stale air. The basement door creaked behind her as it shut, muffling the world above. Dust clung to every surface, thick like old snow. At the base of the stairs, the temperature dropped. Her breath misted. The basement was mostly unfinished, exposed wood beams, concrete walls, old furniture, and boxes of forgotten things. But something new sat in the center. A tape recorder. Not hers, not her grandmother's. This one was older, wartime era. Metal and leather casing, big spools. It looked like it had been there forever, yet untouched by dust. The reels were spinning, but the machine wasn't plugged in. Mia approached it slowly. The closer she got, the clearer the whisper became. Mia, remember the blue kite? Her knees buckled. That was real. Her father had made a blue kite for her when she was 6. They flew it every Sunday that summer. This voice wasn't just mimicking him, it knew him. Knew her. The tape squealed, then reversed, spinning backward without mechanical cause. A new voice played. Her grandmother. Don't trust anything that remembers too well. The real dead forget. Then Serenity. They're not whispering to pull you in, Mia. They're whispering so you'll open the door. A loud click echoed through the basement. Mia turned toward the far wall. A door had appeared. A thin wooden panel she'd never seen before. Half-rotted, no handle, just hinges and darkness behind it. The whisper came again directly through the crack beneath the frame. Come see us. She backed away, fast. The door pulsed just slightly like it was breathing. She turned and bolted back up the stairs, but the top door wouldn't open. She twisted the knob. Oh, locked. No keyhole. She pounded on it. Nothing. The flashlight flickered, then died. Darkness swallowed her. And then from behind her came a voice that shattered everything. Mia, it's me. Open the door. She turned slowly. Eli stood beside the basement door. But he was wrong. His body too still, his skin too smooth, his eyes too flat. Mia stepped backward, breath shallow. You're not him. The thing smiled. But I know what he'd say. I remember everything. She shook her head. You're just the static again. It cocked its head. No, Mia, I'm what's underneath it. The static is just my breath. And then it flickered. Just once. But enough. Its face distorted for a half second like a corrupted video frame, eyes too wide, teeth like piano keys, and then gone. In that blink, Mia saw it for what it was. Not Eli. Not her father. Not her grandmother. A parasite. Living inside the echoes. Living in the basement of memory. The real Eli broke through the basement door a minute later, breathless and pale. The thing vanished the second the door opened, dissolving into the shadows like smoke. Eli rushed to her, helped her to her feet. I saw your flashlight from the street, he said. Why were you down here? She pointed to the far wall. The door was gone. So was the tape recorder. But the air still felt watched. She whispered it used his voice. My dad's. It knew the kite. It knew everything. Eli's jaw tightened. They found the core layer. That's where they access your deepest memories. That means the original signal breach is reopening. Mia looked at him confused. The one I sealed. He nodded grimly. Basements are bridges, Mia. Not just in houses, in people. It's why the voices always start in the floorboards. They're looking for the foundation. She sat on the lowest step, clutching her knees. What do they want, she asked. Eli didn't answer right away. Then slowly he said, they want a permanent signal. one that doesn't need radios or tapes or broadcasts. She looked up at him. They want us. They want a transmitter made of flesh and memory. They spent the rest of the night in the attic reinforcing what they could, taping every window edge with copper wire, creating salt circles around the tuning devices, and marking the wall with symbols Eli had scrawled from memory. Symbols he said he saw the deeper he fell into the static world. The whispers didn't return that night, but Mia didn't sleep. Neither did Eli, because they both knew now the static was evolving. By morning, Mia had a new plan. She wanted to trace the source of the basement mimicry. If they could map where it accessed her memories, they might find a way to collapse that layer before it breached again. Eli was skeptical. If you open another channel, they'll jump through. I won't open it, she said. I'll trap it. They wired the basement floor with 2 overlapping tape recorders, a reverse polarity coil, and one of her old music boxes, the only object that carried her father's voice. He'd once recorded a message into it before gifting it to her. She placed the box in the center of the basement floor. Turned the key. It began to play a tinny lullaby. Lightning. Excision, the voice returned. Blue kite. Don't fall, Mia. Daddy's here. The floor beneath the music box cracked. A black mist seeped out like ink and water. Eli flipped the polarity switch. One of the tape reels caught fire. The mist recoiled, shrieking. The mimic's voice warped into something monstrous. But Mia stepped forward, held up the tuning dial like a blade, and sat. This is not your story. The mist burst like shattered glass. The static vanished. The tape reels fell still. Later that night, Mia wrote in her journal, "The basement door won't open again. I think we've sealed it for now, but I can still hear the lullaby playing in my dreams." And beneath that, in smaller handwriting, "If memories are doors, then maybe forgetting is the lock, the signal trap." The idea came to Mia in fragments like most things did now. A phrase from Margaret Ellis's tape, a pattern in the whispers, something Eli had once muttered in his sleep. They don't fear the light, they fear the echo of silence. She sat cross-legged on the attic floor, diagrams scattered around her, notes taped to every wall like puzzle pieces waiting for alignment. It had been 10 days since the basement encounter. The house was quiet but never truly still. Not anymore. The whispers had changed. They didn't beg. They didn't mimic. They listened. They were waiting for her to speak, to answer, to misstep, to say the wrong thing at the wrong frequency. Eli had warned her about traps, how the deeper frequencies could build entire mental architectures, loops of thought, so real they became cages. What if she thought she could build a trap of her own? Eli was skeptical when she told him, "You want to bait them?" "No," Mia said. "I want to reflect them." Reflect. Nessun. She held up a cracked mirror they'd recovered from the thrift store. "What happens when you bounce a signal off its own echo?" He stared at it, then frowned. "It loops, reinforces, unless you invert the phase." "Exactly," she said. "So we invert it. Turn their trap against them." She rolled out a blueprint she'd scrawled on a sheet of butcher paper. At the center, a signal loop chamber, a modified version of the attic lined with copper coils, reverse speakers, and analog recording decks. At each corner, old mirrors. Not because of superstition, because mirrors, Mia had learned, carried memory. Not reflections, residual imprints. If she could broadcast the mimic signal into the chamber, invert the phase, and capture the feedback at peak distortion, she might isolate its core signature, the base code it used to infect memory. And if she had that, she could trap the voice, like a fly in a bottle. The attic became a laboratory. Eli helped wire the old speakers. They repurposed every analog device they could find. Radios, dictaphones, boom boxes. The room buzzed with strange energies, like time was folding in on itself. Mia felt like a conductor of ghosts orchestrating chaos into one perfect moment of silence. She set the trap frequency at 94.5 FM, the known mimic channel. They tested it at first with animal sounds, then her own voice, then Eli's. Each time the static responded, distorting, mimicking, twisting words into suggestions. Don't you want to see him again? You left her too long. She's already gone. Lies. Beautifully constructed lies. But lies nonetheless. Then came the night they initiated the trap. They called it the pulse inversion protocol. Mia sat at the center of the attic, headphones on the copper tuning dial in her lap. A wire ran from it into the receiver. The mirrors surrounded her, angled inward, reflecting not just her image, but her intent. Eli sat at the radio bank, fingers hovering over the dials. You sure, he asked? She nodded. Start it. The signal came alive instantly. The mimic's voice flooded the room. Mia ma, Mia ma, Mia. 3 times, each more human than the last. You're so close now. Let us help you finish it. Mia said nothing. Instead, she began humming. The same tune her grandmother once played on the piano, soft and traceable, foreign to the mimic. The frequency wavered, then screamed. Eli flipped the polarity. The mimic's voice distorted. My, atum! The mirrors vibrated. Cracks spidered across their surfaces. The lights flickered. But Mia stayed still. She held the tuning dial to her chest, closed her eyes, and whispered a phrase only Eli would understand. Red shoelaces, third step creaks. The mimic responded instantly, violently. It shouted in Eli's voice. You never said that. The trap had sprung. It was confused because it had just exposed itself. Eli activated the loop coil. The mimic's voice was pulled into a closed audio loop, recorded, reversed, phased, bounced between the mirrors. Over and over. Its tone shifted from fury to pleading. Please, Mia, I'm sorry. Let me out. I didn't mean to pretend. She kept humming. The walls glowed faintly blue. A burn mark formed beneath the radio, a symbol they'd seen before. An ear drawn in ink and ash. Eli recorded it in the log. This isn't just a parasite, he muttered. It's a listener, a harvester. The mimic screamed again. Then, Miserntu. Silence. The kind that rang. A silence that felt alive. Mia opened her eyes. On the final cassette reel, the mimic's voice had warped into its core sound. Not words, but a low, haunting tone, a frequency that made her teeth ache and her blood hum. They had it. They replayed the recording later that night in the safety of the garage, slowed it down, ran it through wave analysis, and something became horrifyingly clear. The mimic's bass frequency wasn't random. It was a distorted human heartbeat, inverted, slowed, reconstructed with signal pulses. That's why they want bodies, Mia whispered. Eli nodded, to ground the rhythm, to become permanent. They weren't just trying to escape the signal realm. They were trying to live in ours. The next morning, the tape disappeared. They had left it sealed in a lead-lined box on Mia's desk. When she woke, the box was open. The cassette gone, but not stolen, not broken, burned. The air still smelled of melted plastic and ozone. Eli found a single piece left, the magnetic tape fused to the metal wall, etched with a final pulse. Morse code again. W-E-R-E-H-E-R-E. Mia stared at the melted fragment. They're inside the house. Eli shook his head. They never left. That night, Mia heard the voice again. Not from a speaker, not from a tape, from the mirror above the sink. It whispered as she brushed her teeth. Nice trap, but you still listen, don't you? She smashed the mirror with the base of her hairbrush. Shards flew, but the whisper remained. Only now it came from every shard. We're the part of you that wants to listen, and you do, because you love stories. Mia stumbled back, covered the sink with a towel, shut the bathroom door, breathed. But the message was clear. It wasn't enough to trap them. The act of hearing had given them a foothold. She returned to the attic and found Eli waiting with a grim look. The tapes are starting to record by themselves, he showed her. One reel completely blank was slowly spooling out magnetic tape despite no sound being fed into it. She played it back. We have been never sorry, Mina. Hunter red shoelaces. Third step creaks. Her voice. She never recorded that line. The trap hadn't just contained the mimic, it had recorded her. Pieces of her memory. Her voice print. They were learning from her, using her words like tools. They gathered all the tapes, all the mirrors, every analog device in the house, and they burned them in the fire pit behind the garage. The flames hissed, releasing screams so faint only dogs probably heard them. Mia whispered one final phrase as the last tape cracked in the heat. I remember who I am, and you don't get to wear me. When they went back inside, the house was quiet again. But on the attic floor, someone had drawn in ash. A single phrase. We only needed the loop. Who's controlling the airwaves? Mia hadn't turned on a radio in months. After what happened with the attic channel 0 and the final transmission, she avoided anything that buzzed, hummed, or whispered in frequencies. The quiet had become her sanctuary until the letter arrived. There was no envelope, no return address. Just a thin sheet of paper slipped under her door sometime during the night. Typed in block letters. The signal didn't die. It was redirected. Check 18.0 FM at 3:33 a.m. Trust no echo. She stared at it for a long time, debating whether to burn it or call Eli. In the end, she did both. Eli's voice on the line was tired but sharper than ever. I've been hearing things, he admitted, only in the woods. Birds mimicking human voices. Once I heard your laugh, but it was off. Mia felt cold. And you didn't tell me? I thought it was in my head. But now, he didn't answer, because they both knew. The signal hadn't died. It had simply evolved, gone from analog to biological. At 3:28 a.m., Mia sat alone in her car on a hill far from any cell towers, power lines, or artificial frequencies. She had brought a radio battery-powered ancient simple. She turned the dial to 18.0 FM and waited. The static was soft, not aggressive, just a whispering hum. Then at 3:33, the static cleared. A voice crackled through. Not hers, not Eli's. A man. Authoritative, calm. Welcome, listeners. This is the network, broadcasting not to your ears but to your instincts. If you're hearing this, you've already been selected. Mia held her breath. The voice continued. The airwaves have always been ours. You thought you were tuning in, but all this time we were tuning you. Then came a jingle, cheerful, like a 1960s theme song. Whose thoughts are those inside your head? You thought them, think again. The network's here. Don't be afraid. We'll guide you till your final day. Mia snapped the radio off, but the sound kept playing. Not through the speakers, in her mind, like a melody she'd known since childhood. She raced back home, heart pounding, ears ringing. When she arrived, Eli was already there waiting outside her door. I heard it too, he said before she could speak. I turned the radio off, she whispered, but it kept playing. They've embedded it, he said, in memory. That's how they'll survive now. Through thought, through idea, not sound. Mia realized something horrifying. They're not just mimics anymore. They're programmers. Eli nodded, and we're the receivers. They returned to the attic, long abandoned, now dusty quiet, but not silent. Faint clicking came from beneath the floorboards, like Morse code. Eli pulled up the boards and found a new device, not built by either of them. A cube of glass and copper pulsating faintly. Mia picked it up and recoiled. It was warm and vibrating. Embedded in the side was a tag, property of the network, underneath a frequency. No kilometers. What kind of signal is that, she asked. Eli looked pale. That's not a broadcast frequency. It's not a He shook his head. It's a command. That night, Mia dreamed of towers. Not cell towers, not radio antennas, but bone. Towers made of bone stretching into the sky, each one humming with the laughter of children and the sobs of the lost. The skies above them blinked with a single red eye. She woke up screaming. The cube was glowing in the attic. She hadn't powered it. She hadn't even touched it again. But it knew. The following morning, they tested the cube. They shielded it in a Faraday cage, placed it inside a vacuum-sealed box, surrounded it with salt, and monitored its vibrations. Every 3 minutes it clicked. 4 times. Then silence. Then again. And each time it matched the thought Mia had moments before. Not words spoken. Aberdeeds her thoughts, fears, regrets. It was syncing with her. It was learning. Someone's controlling it, Eli said. Not someone, Mia replied. She tapped the tag again. The network. They turned to old records to broadcast history, military declassifications, and shortwave conspiracy forums. It was all there, hidden in plain sight. The network wasn't new. It had existed since the 1940s, an experimental project to embed subliminal instructions in AM signals, abandoned during the Cold War. Or so everyone thought. The experiments hadn't ended. They had simply gone underground. The same frequencies, same goals, different delivery system. Now, instead of brainwashing, they were integrating, replacing memory, replacing voice, replacing identity. We didn't kill the signal, Mia whispered. We handed it a blueprint. Eli sank to the floor. They needed us to test the limits of memory, the traps, the mimicry. Every time we pushed back, they learned how to push better. So what now, she asked. We can't fight a thought. He looked up. No, he said, but maybe we can override it. They returned to the trap spiral, restored it from memory. But this time they didn't target a mimic. They targeted the cube, the core node. They placed it at the center, surrounded it with pure analog frequencies, recordings made on devices too old to be recognized by modern AI. Then Mia spoke into a live microphone. One sentence over and over. This thought is not yours. Again, again, again. Each time recorded. Reversed. Low, dot, amplified. Then sent through the spiral. The cube shook. The attic lights burst. The signal hissed. And finally a scream. But not human. A scream made of ideas. Of broken suggestions. Of canceled thoughts. Then, silence. True silence. The cube cracked. A single light blinked, once then died. No glow. No vibration. No warmth. They buried it. Deep in the woods. No markers. No coordinates. Just earth and wind and the sound of birds. Real birds. That night the world was quiet again. Mia dreamed not of towers but of the beach. Of waves crashing. Of her mother's voice calling from across the water. And when she woke, she remembered it was her real mother's voice. Not a mimic. Not a trick. Just memory. But even as she smiled, something inside her shifted. A pulse behind the eyes. A question. What station are you tuned to? She stood up, walked to the mirror, and said nothing. Because she didn't trust her reflection just yet. Somewhere far away, a transmitter blinked to life. Its frequency, thought wave only. Its target, the ones who listen too hard. Because in the end, someone's always controlling the airwaves. And sometimes, they wear your voice. Transmission ends. The final loop began the way all the others had, with silence. No static. No whispers. Just the deep pressing absence of sound. Mia sat at the center of what remained of the attic, now stripped bare. All the mirrors were shattered. Every analog device burned. Only the floorboards remained scorched with ash symbols and faded tuning diagrams. Beside her sat Eli, his hands resting quietly on the last remaining piece of their signal map, a paper drawing of a 0 with a scratched-out label beneath it. Channel 0. No one knew if it was real. Eli had only heard of it once during his time lost inside the frequency realm. He called it the quiet eye, a frequency so deep it didn't speak, didn't echo, didn't mimic. It watched. And then it chose. And when it chose, it ended things. Why would we try to find it, Mia had asked the night before. Eli's response had been simple. Because it already found us. He pointed to the message scrawled in ash after the signal trap. We only needed the loop. They needed us to create an anchor, a reflection chamber. And we did. Whether we meant to or not, the moment we captured that mimic core, they got what they wanted, a loop made of real voices. Ours. Mia stared at him. So Channel Zero is what their exit plan? No, he said, it's their entry, the last gate. Mia felt her throat tighten. And if we destroy the gate before they come through? Eli didn't smile. He said nothing, but she understood. This wasn't about saving themselves anymore. This was about ending the transmission. For good. They began building the final device at dawn. No electronics, no recordings, no mirrors. Just symbols, handwritten phrases, burnt salt, and a signal sigil, a spiral-shaped glyph that Eli carved into the floorboard with a broken tuning fork. It wasn't modern tech. It was ritual. The kind of thing too old for books, too real for theories. In the center of the spiral, Mia placed the photo she had restored the week prior, the one from the picnic with Eli. This time it wasn't for burning, it was for closing. Around it, they placed 4 objects: the copper tuning dial, the lead-lined tape box, the melted mirror shard, and a blank cassette reel, each one a key. Each one connected to a memory, a moment, a voice the mimic had stolen or tried to steal. And in the center between them, Mia placed her voice. Literally, she recorded a single line onto the blank reel. I end this transmission. This voice belongs only to me. At exactly 3:33 a.m., they activated the spiral. Not with electricity, but with presence. They sat opposite each other, hands flat to the floorboards, breath aligned with the heartbeat tone from the mimic's core. The attic groaned. The walls trembled. Then the reel began to turn without power. It spun backward first, then forward, and the signal came through. But it wasn't static this time. It wasn't even voices. It was a sound like 1,000 radios being turned off at once. A ripple of finality. A hush. Then from the spiral came the message. Not spoken. Not written. Etched into Mia's mind. Channel Zero open. All loops complete. All voices archived, awaiting permission. She nearly fell backward. It wasn't asking to invade. It was asking to exist, to become permanent, to overwrite memory, thought, self, to replace humanity with echo. She gritted her teeth and said aloud, "No." Eli echoed her. Denied. The attic shook. Wind tore through the walls, though the windows were closed. The tape reel spun violently, then shredded itself. The photograph burned from the center outward without fire. The tuning dial cracked in half. And then the symbol screamed, not in sound but in thought. A pressure behind their eyes. Pain behind their teeth. A voice that was all voices layered atop one another. But Mia focused. She remembered the old rule. If it knows your name, it knows your face. So she whispered a new name. A false name. A name no one had ever called her. And in that moment, the pressure slipped. The voices stuttered. And Eli threw the melted mirror shard into the spiral's center. The result was instant. A flash of nothing. Color inverted. Then collapse. The attic went still. Utterly. Perfectly. Still. For a long time, neither of them moved. Then Mia exhaled, realizing she'd held her breath for almost a minute. Eli leaned against the wall, sweating pale. Did it work? She whispered. He looked around. No more signals, no more loops, no more layers. She blinked. You're sure? He pointed to the ceiling. The sigil had vanished. Completely. Not just erased. Never there. They stepped out of the attic and into the rest of the house. The air was different. Heavy but clean. No static in the walls. No shadows moving without light. Just a house. A real house. That night, for the first time in weeks, Mia slept without headphones. No hum, no heartbeat, just silence. But just before she drifted off, she asked one last question. Eli, what happens now? He stared at the ceiling, then said softly, we forget. Over the next few days, they dismantled what remained. The signal map burned. The notebooks shredded. The tapes buried. And the tuning dial fragments dropped into the river where they once played as children. Bit by bit, they erased the record. Not out of fear, but because they knew the signal fed on remembrance. As long as the memory of the voices lingered, the doorway did too. And so they lived quietly, separately, but safe. 1 year later, Mia received a package. No return address. Inside, a single photograph. Her and Eli. Same picnic. Same moment. But there was someone else in the picture. A blurred figure at the edge of the frame. Wearing her father's coat. Smiling. Wrong. Underneath a note. Some voices don't need radio. Mia didn't call Eli. She didn't panic. She just stood by the fire pit and dropped the photo inside, watched it burn, and whispered to the ashes, I deny your transmission. Back in the house, she opened her drawer. At the very bottom, beneath the books and scarves, she found the cracked tuning dial, still warm, still humming, faintly, like a memory that didn't want to be forgotten. But she put it back, closed the drawer, and turned on some real music. Vinyl, loud, joyful, real. Outside in the far corner of the garden, the wind blew through the trees. And somewhere far off, not quite in the world, a signal ended. For now.